Ladies and gentlemen, may I have your attention, please? Today's seminar will begin a bit later than scheduled at 3:05 due to the traffic conditions outside. Please turn off your mobile devices or put them in silent mode during the seminar. Thank you for your cooperation. 안녕.
I will take questions from anyone who would like to ask something. Just raise your hand and I'll be happy to answer any questions you might have.
안녕하세요. Hello.
지금 그거로 거기 옆에 놔뒀다가 네가 같이 네가 하면 돼. 시작하고 네가 주고 다른 질문 있으면 마이크 주면 그다음에 켜놓은 상태 주면 되잖아.
네. 그럼 Q&A 했을 때 손 들고 받고 시작. Thank you for the lecture, sir. And I have a question, etc., etc.
Now let us begin the 60th PEAT seminar.
그럼 지금부터 피트 제60차 공개특강을 시작하겠습니다.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I am Teresa Won Lee, your host for today's event.
안녕하십니까. 오늘 진행을 맡은 MC 이승현입니다.
We sincerely appreciate each and every one of you for sparing your time and being here with us today. We hope you have a lot of takeaways from this seminar.
본 공개특강에 참석해 주신 여러분께 진심으로 감사드립니다. 귀한 시간 내주신 만큼 미래를 준비하는 데 도움이 될 수 있는 알찬 강연으로 준비했습니다. 오늘 특강이 여러분에게 많은 도움이 되시기를 바랍니다.
First, Mr. Jo Bom-gi, the organizer of today's seminar, will give us his welcoming speech.
먼저 이번 공개특강을 기획하신 한국국제MC협회 조범기 사무총장의 환영사가 있겠습니다.
Mr. Jo Bom-gi has put sincere dedication to training English MCs and announcers for more than 20 years as the Secretary General of the Korea International Master of Ceremony Association and the CEO of BK Communication. He has been hosting various international events together with central and local governments.
조범기 사무총장님은 국내 최초로 영어 MC 아나운서 양성 과정을 개발 및 운영하고 있으며 1998년 이래로 정부 중앙부처와 지자체 그리고 많은 교육기관들과 다양한 국제 행사를 유치하고 또 진행하고 계십니다. 여러분 사무총장님을 큰 박수로 맞이해 주시기 바랍니다.
네, 안녕하십니까. 굉장히 오랜만에 하니까 떨리네요. 코로나 때문에 너무 쉬었어요, 그죠? 사실 오늘 영어로 다 할까 하다가 저도 한국에 돌아온 게 98년도에 들어와가지고 그 뒤로 영어를 쓸 일이 별로 없어요. 그러니까 잘난 척하면서 영어 발음 교정해주고 막 행사 원고 하는 거는 다 알려주고 있지만 사실 프리토킹을 하라 그러면 저도 이제는 좀 어렵기 때문에 여기 계신 많은 분들이 저랑 미스커뮤니케이션을 굉장히 많이 만들고 있습니다. 저는 한국말하고 앞에는 영어하고. 근데 오늘 오신 분들이나 지금 방송을 보시는 분들은 영어로 정말 방송을 하거나 성우를 하고 싶으신 분들이니까 저처럼 오랫동안 안 썼으니까 라는 핑계는 안 되겠죠. 네, 근데 오늘 아마 제이슨이 강의를 하는 동안은 한국말을 하지 말라 그랬어요. 제이슨은 거꾸로 영어는 편한데 한국어로 말하면 저랑 문제가 생겨서 서로 반대를 하고 있는데 중간중간에 제가 강의가 진행된 이후에도 뭐 발음 한국인이기 때문에 못 만드는 발음들이 있거든요. 이제 말할 때도 그래서 어감이 전달이 안 되고 있는데 이런 부분에 대한 거를 좀 바꿀 수 있는 그것도 필요하시면 다음에 또 제가 또 특강을 해드릴 거예요. 근데 오늘은 제이슨 특강 잘 들으시고 뭐 기회가 되시면 뭐 필요한 팁 있거나 하면 제가 마지막에 제 연락처하고 전화번호 적어놨거든요. 그러니까 그때 그쪽으로 연락 주셔도 또 제이슨한테 직접 번호 알려주실 거죠? 네. 예. 번호 알려드리면 뭐 질문 있으면 직접 질문하셔도 됩니다. 아무튼 오늘 좋은 시간 되시길 바라겠습니다. 감사합니다.
Thank you, Secretary General.
네, 말씀 감사합니다.
Now, Mr. Jason Lee will give us a lecture about English broadcasting with the title of Getting Hired is Not Good Enough. Mr. Lee has been working in various areas of the English broadcasting industry as an announcer, sports news anchor, and voice actor, among many others.
이제 영어 아나운서 제이슨 리님께서 Getting Hired is Not Good Enough 라는 주제로 영어 방송에 대해 강연해 주시겠습니다. 제이슨 리님은 영어 아나운서, 스포츠 뉴스 앵커, 캐스터, 성우 등 다양한 분야에서 활약하고 계십니다.
Please welcome him with a big round of applause.
Thank you very much. All right. First off, I want to thank Pete for giving me the opportunity to speak to people. I think I have a lot of stories that I would like to share, and sometimes I just like to talk about myself, so it's nice just to have an audience. So thank you for being here, to be ears to listen to the things that I have to say. All right, my lecture today is about getting hired is not good enough, meaning just because you get hired, you're on TV, you're on radio, it doesn't mean that that should be your goal. That's not the end of everything. You should be striving for more because there is more. And to have your goals so low can even result in you having a very short career perhaps in the area that is broadcasting because it's very competitive. So let me start by saying yes or maybe. That is your answer to my question. So what is my question? My question is, do you want to become a broadcaster? Okay, your answer should be yes or maybe. If it's no, you shouldn't be here at all, right? Everyone here wants to become a broadcaster, or you're at least thinking about it. And perhaps if you're thinking about it, maybe you want me to tell you somehow today that you're going to be a great broadcaster, you should do it, something of that effect. Unfortunately, that's not what I'm here to do today. I'm going to instead speak a little bit about my career, what I've done, how I became successful, and how I've been doing this for as long as I have. And hopefully through my stories and experiences, you'll be able to understand what it takes to get into broadcasting and to stay in broadcasting as long as I've been in it. So for me, I've been in broadcasting for 30 years. I was 7 years in Canada and the last 23 years in Korea. And I guess let me just start off of, the path that I took, just so you understand each of the steps that I've gone through. So I went to a broadcasting school or an academy, much like what PEAT is doing here, in 1991. So after high school, I went to a broadcast academy. I did a 10-month program. And after that 10-month program was finished, I went to a couple of stations in Vancouver, radio stations that I interned at. And I interned for a few months, and while interning, eventually I was hired to work at the radio station, and I was paid to be working, but I wasn't on air. Okay, I was the one that was playing music or flipping the switch. I was kind of like a sound engineer, but my voice was never out on the radio just yet. Of course, because I went to broadcasting school and my goal was to become a sportscaster someday, that was my goal, but I hadn't achieved that just yet. But my foot was in the door. I was trying, I've gotten a little bit in, but I hadn't quite reached my end goal just yet. So while working at the radio station in Vancouver, I was always sending out audio tapes to other radio stations all across Canada. And my teacher had always told me, you can't just start being on air at a big TV station or radio station in Vancouver. People don't want beginners in important jobs because beginners make mistakes. It is what it is. Nobody is perfect when you begin. Everybody makes mistakes. I make a lot of mistakes. And in a little bit, I'm going to show you a video of how I started, and you'll be able to see that I wasn't very good when I started either. So when you get started after school, you'll probably end up going to maybe a station or a job that you might not like as much, but you do everything that you can to gain experience. And as you gain experience, you get a little bit better at what you do. And it might not be exactly what you do, but it'll be related. And everything that you do related to the end goal is what makes every part of your broadcasting ability better. Meaning, my goal eventually was I wanted to be a sportscaster. When I was working at the radio station, I was working with radio DJs. It had nothing to do with sports, but I was talking with the #1 DJs in Vancouver every day for my job. And as I talk to them, they know that I want to be on air. So while I'm working with them, they give me advice. Or maybe I'll make a recording and then they'll listen to it and give me feedback yeah, that's not bad, but you still sound a little bit rough here. You sound a little bit amateurish here. It sounds here like you're trying too hard. Over here, you sound like maybe you're just not as interested. So they would always give me advice and feedback, and a lot of how I became who I am on air, my delivery, the way I speak, it came from some of those DJs at CFOX. It was the station I was working at, and they taught me a lot of the advice. And also, my job was to listen to them, and then they don't have scripts. So they just say, and the next song coming up is Led Zeppelin with All of My Love. And then as I hear that, I have to play the song. So every single word they say, how they say it, I have to listen very, very carefully. And it's that attention to detail, listening to all of the top DJs in Vancouver for a couple of years, and then hearing advice from them, and then recording demos myself and having them critique my demos, that helped me become better and better. I also knew that I wasn't eventually going to get on air in Vancouver at that station. I wanted to, I tried to, but at the same time, I knew that that was a long shot. It was going to be very difficult because, like I said, they don't usually hire beginners because they want you to make your mistakes somewhere else at a station that's not as important, because the station that I worked at was a very big station. So while I was working there, I was also sending out demo tapes to a lot of smaller stations in smaller towns all across Canada. So I sent out maybe 75 or 80 tapes. 75 or 80 tapes over the course of 2 years. And every time I send out a tape, I would call the station and say, hi, my name is Jason Lee. I work at CFOX in Vancouver. I was wondering if you got my demo tape. Wondering if you might be hiring a DJ or a sports anchor someday. And they would tell me, well, someday, but not yet. Or yes, we got your tape and we're not hiring right now. And then sometimes I would ask, well, if you were hiring, when you listen to my tape, do you think I'm good enough to be working at your station right now? Most of the time, they said, no. It's as simple as that. And I was like, oh, okay. And it was rejection after rejection after rejection because I wasn't good enough. And a lot of the stations I was sending to were towns of 40, 50, 100, 1,000 people. So they're still medium-sized cities. I was also sending to towns of 10,000, 12,000, 15,000 people. So those were among the 80 or so tapes that I sent out. And eventually, out of all of the places over the course of 2 years, one station called me and said, are you interested in working for us? Because we're hiring somebody and we want you to come to our station. There's a small town called Dawson Creek. It's a 16-hour drive north of Vancouver. So if you think of Seoul to Busan, it'd be like going down to Busan, back to Seoul, back down to Busan. 16-hour drive to get there. It was a very, very long drive. But I said, yes, I do want to work there, and I need to get to this small town to work. And that job that they offered me still wasn't even on air. It was to be a copywriter. So my job was to write commercials. And originally I got there and I thought, after about 2 weeks, I was thinking, this is terrible. This is so much worse than the work that I was doing in Vancouver because the station level is a lot lower. It's the Vancouver station I was working at is a lot of the best people in all of Canada, and the people I was working with in Dawson Creek were people that couldn't get jobs anywhere else, including myself. So I got there and I was miserable because not only was I in a small town of 12,000 people, I think I was the only Asian there as well as all white people. There weren't many people at all, and I wasn't even on air, so I couldn't even practice what I wanted to practice. 3 weeks in, so one more week after, their sports director quit. He got a job at another radio station, and all of a sudden, the station needed to hire a sports director. And I said to the boss, I want that job. And they said, are you sure you want to be a sportscaster sportscaster because you were working at a radio station in Vancouver that was a music station. It was a rock and roll station. And so we were going to let you take the DJ job and we were going to make one of our DJs become the sportscaster. And I said, no, 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 no. I want to be the sportscaster because that was my goal all along. But I just understood that people that were, I was 21 at the time, people that are 21 aren't on TV talking about sports. So I thought, okay, well, that should not be my goal right now. I should be a radio DJ to start, and then I can transition to becoming a sportscaster later. But I said, no, 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 if that's available now, I want to do the sports now. So they asked me to do a demo tape, to record something as if I was the sportscaster, and if they liked it, then they would give me that job. And that's what I did, and eventually I got hired. Now, when I got hired, my job was to read and write the sports for a sportscast at 7 a.m., 8 a.m., and 12 p.m. And then my day was done. So I would get into work by about 6 o'clock, research everything that I'm supposed to do my sportscast at 7 o'clock, do another one at 8 o'clock. I have like a 2-hour break, and then rewrite some other stuff, do my 12 o'clock, and then I'm off for the day. Sometimes I'll go out, I'll do some reporting, I'll talk to some local sports people to get stories. But that was basically my job. That's what I was supposed to do. That is not what I did. Okay? Before I went to Dawson Creek, I told you I had a lot of mentors that worked in Vancouver. And when I told them, I just got a job in Dawson Creek, so I'm going to be going there. And I'm leaving now, and hopefully this, I'm not going to be on air right away, but hopefully this will lead to me becoming on air because it's in a smaller town. So if something does become available, I'll be one of the first people that they would consider. And one of the advice that I got is, that's great. I'm glad you're going. You're finally going to get an opportunity. But remember this. When you go there, after 2 years, no matter what happens, quit. Okay, why should I quit after 2 years? And the advice made sense because he was saying, why are you going to Dawson Creek? Is it because you want to live there for the rest of your life? Is it because you want to meet a girl there and settle down and then stay there? What's your purpose? Are you going there to earn money? Why are you going there? I thought, well, I'm going there so I can get experience. I want to become a better broadcaster, and eventually I want to be working in a bigger market. I want to come back to Vancouver or work in a major market of some sort. I want to be covering Major League sports. There's your answer right there. Remember, what was your goal when you went? It wasn't because you want to live in this city. Your goal was to learn, to gain experience, and become a better broadcaster. So when I was in Dawson Creek, my job was to read the sports 7 a.m., 8 a.m., 12 o'clock. It's actually not a ton of work. It was a 6-hour day, but I worked probably more than 12 hours every day. Because first off, when you're in Dawson Creek, town of 12,000 people, there's nothing else to do anyways. There's nothing fun to do there. You're not going to go out and meet new people and have fun at parties and stuff, go to hockey games. There really isn't much to do, so I may as well get better. So what I did in my time there was I tried to do anything I possibly could to learn, regardless of whether that's what I was supposed to do or not. When the DJs were on, it's like, can I be a guest? You want me to be a reporter? You want me to pretend and act like somebody else? Is there something I can do to make your show more fun? I don't need to get paid for it. I just want to goof around, do what I can do to make your show fun, and that gives me practice on air as well. I would go to hockey games because part of my job was being the sportscaster, and what I noticed was one day there was a broadcast booth at the hockey rink, and they played games at this hockey rink, and there was a booth there. And I went back to the boss of our station. I said, you know what? I was at the rink and I noticed there was a broadcast booth there, and it had our logo there, CJDC 890. And I thought, do we broadcast hockey games? And they say, oh, no, we haven't done that in 30 years, maybe 40 years. I said, well, why not? I said, we don't have anybody to do it. I'll do it. You'll do it? You have to wake up at 6 o'clock to be in at work. How are you going to broadcast the hockey games? They're at 8 o'clock at night. They're going to finish at 10 o'clock. How are you going to get any sleep? I don't care. I want to learn. If I can practice. If I'm in Vancouver, I would never, ever have the opportunity to learn how to do play-by-play broadcasting. No one's going to put me on air at a Canucks game or a Major League Baseball game or a basketball game. I don't have the experience. Those are the places that I can go where I can learn and I can practice. So they said, well, why don't you go to a game and record a demo, and we'll see if we can get a sponsor for it. And if we can get a sponsor for it, well, we'll get you to do it. So I went to the game and I practiced and recorded myself, gave it to them. They tried to play the demo for other stores and restaurants and businesses in our town, and says, Jason wants to do play-by-play live hockey games for the local team. Do you guys want to sponsor his show? And they found several sponsors. And they said, yeah, okay, go ahead and do it. And I got an extra $25 for every game that I broadcast, which is maybe 2 to 3 hours. They gave me an extra $25 to do the games. I didn't care about the money. It wasn't about the money. I would have done it for free. I would have paid money to be allowed to do that, because that experience was vital for my future. Right now, I do play-by-play for the KBO. For the KBO, SPO TV? So right now, for SPO TV, I go to DMC every Tuesday and Wednesday, and I broadcast KBO games there. Okay. If I've never done any of that play-by-play hockey that I did back in 1995 in Dawson Creek, that experience helped me to be able to do a good job here at DMC with SPO TV. So when I went to SPO TV and they said, okay, we're thinking about hiring you to do this, why don't you do a practice and we'll see if we like you. I did a practice and they're like, wow, okay, yeah, that was good. We'll use you. It was pretty much automatic. But it was the willingness that I was doing that for free before that allowed me to improve at that. So after working in Dawson Creek, like my boss said before, I stayed for 2 years and I quit. While I was there, I also did a little bit of TV, and I also created my own sports talk show. All of those things for free. I wasn't paid for it, but I wanted to learn how to host a talk show. I wanted to be on TV to try that, and I'll show you a little bit of that in a little bit. But these are things that it's experience, and when I eventually got to other jobs, it was those experiences that trusted my bosses to allow me to go ahead and do those things. So anytime you have an opportunity to do something to improve your ability, always take that chance. Don't worry about the time that you're spending on it. Don't worry about the money that you're not making. Worry about improving. How will it make me better? Okay, always think about that. Also, during the 30 years that I've worked, one thing that you learn is you learn how to see broadcasting differently. Sometimes it's a bit of a curse for me, because when I watch TV, I can tell who's good and who's bad. I can tell when I'm good and when I'm bad. And sometimes, you can be too critical when you watch TV. When you watch TV, do you have people that, oh, I don't like that news anchor, or I don't like that reporter? Do you have people that you have that with? When I was in Vancouver, there were 2 or 3 people that were sportscasters that would be on the nightly sports, and when they were on, I would turn the channel. I said, oh, that person's too arrogant. Oh, that person's too annoying. Oh, that person's so boring. Sports should be fun. Why is that person so boring? So when I got into sportscasting, one of the things that I said to myself essentially is this: getting hired is not good enough. I don't want to be that guy on TV that everybody hates. There are people on TV that I hate. I don't want to be that person. I want to be the person that everyone likes, right? Isn't that why we're on TV in the first place? Because everyone wants to be liked to a certain degree, right? That's why you want to be on. So understanding that, it changes your perception of just wanting to be hired, but instead wanting to do a good job and improving. So I'm gonna, without further ado, let's show you the videos that I've prepared. Turn off the lights. Let's start with this one.
That's right, Sonia. It's been an exciting night of sports. No doubt about that. The NBA's trade deadline came and went. Othello Harrington is still a Grizzly, as is every other player that started the day on the team. And why would Stu Jackson mess with a team that has now won 4 of their last 6 games? Vancouver has been hot, and they were attempting to take a season sweep over the Boston Celtics just 2 days after sweeping the Chicago Bulls.
Okay, so that was me in Vancouver in 1999. Okay, that was after I'd been in Dawson Creek. I got back to Vancouver in 1996. I worked in radio in Vancouver for 4 years, and then I was hired by the TV station there. But once again, because I had TV experience when I was in Dawson Creek. So this was basically 24 years ago, okay? When you watch that, I think you could tell that I'm very confident, okay? I'm going to show you a new video of when I was on Arirang TV 10 years ago. This is from 2013, and I'm already confident, so I'm not going to get less confident. But see if you can see any difference as to this one. Oops. Here we go.
All right, when Hong Myung-bo speaks, people listen. It's really that simple. That's how he was able to get Korea to the semifinal of the World Cup in 2002, and that's how he motivated his players to win the bronze medal at the London Olympics last year. So, when Hong Myung-bo spoke yesterday about his plans for how his team will be successful in Brazil next year, the media listened.
Okay, one of the skills that I picked up, the difference between the first video and this one, I would say, is I learned to be more comfortable, to be more casual, to talk to the audience as if you're a person. And one of the key ways that I learned how to do that was pausing more. If you notice, the first video, I just kind of talk straight through for about 20 or 30 seconds, and I'm actually reading a script in all of these, okay? So because I'm reading a script, we don't really talk the way that I did in the first one, but now I'm really making an effort to speak. And when we speak, we pause. A lot of people, when you first learn how to broadcast, the scariest thing is having dead air, having silence. You're like, oh no, it's quiet. But what you learn is if you can use silence as your friend, the loudest thing in the world is anything that follows silence. So if you can learn how to use silence as a tool to make something more dramatic, then it can be much more effective. Okay, and one more thing, I'm going to show you my video from when I first started in Dawson Creek. So this is my first time ever being on TV in 1994.
The Dawson Creek Stampede finished up last night with the chuck wagon races. Curtis Lewis won the 50-inch pony chuck, while Mike Lewis won the 54-inch category. Mike Lewis also won the 54-inch pony chariot, while Gary McAllister won the 50-inch. Now let's take a look at what happened on the rest of the Stampede.
Okay, so I think you can clearly see that much less confident, much less experienced. I didn't have a teleprompter, so I had to read a script like this rather than just reading what the camera is showing me. So very, very different. And I was 21 years old at that time. So that's when I was 21 compared to when I was in my mid-20s and 30s and stuff. So definitely a different experience. But I wanted to show you that because when you watch those 3 videos, I wanted to show you that you can improve, okay? When I started off, I was horrible. When I watch that right now, I mean, I can't even laugh. I want to kill myself for that. I don't like showing that to people, but I do show it to some people if I know that that will help them improve, because I want to give you hope that that's what I was and this is what I became. So it does happen if you apply yourself to it. Let me talk about saying once again that getting hired is not good enough. You know, when you're on TV, one of the things that happens is you expect to get recognized, okay? You expect people to know who you are every now and then. So when I first started on TV, in the first video that I showed you, I was on TV for maybe 2 or 3 months, and then you start to have this feeling like when you're walking down the street, or if you're in a restaurant, or even when you're with friends that are friends of friends that don't know you yet, you kind of expect someone to be like, hey, you're Jason Lee. You kind of get this, but for the first few months, because not everyone's watching your station all the time, it doesn't actually happen. So you're kind of like expecting this thing to happen, and it never actually does, and it's kind of, oh, this is weird. And for me, the first time I was recognized, it was when I wasn't expecting it, because for the first few months you expect it, and then you kind of pass that phase and you're like, oh, no one's ever gonna recognize me. Let there be light. No one's ever gonna recognize me, and you kind of forget about it. And then I think it was maybe 6 months later, I was shopping at a supermarket, and this dad was passing me with his son, and he kind of looks over and he says to his son, hey, look, there's the TV sports guy. And I kind of turned around. I was like, huh, hi, nice to meet you. And what I realized after that, it became a very regular thing. So after 6 months, I would constantly get recognized wherever I go, and certain restaurants that I go to, when I meet friends, and their friends will be, hey, I saw you on TV. Or someone will come up to me and they'll say, I saw you on TV. And that was a line that I would hear over and over and over again. Hey, I saw you on TV. Let me ask you, if someone were to say that to you, you're on TV, and someone says to you, hey, I saw you on TV, what would you say? What do you think you would say? Anyone? No? Any ideas what you might say? Hey, I saw you on TV. Hi. You know, because I've heard that so many times, what I realized is that's not a compliment. It's something that you say like, hey, you're Jason Lee. Hi, I'm Jason Lee. What am I supposed to say? Thank you? Can't really say thank you. It's not a compliment. It's just kind of a weird thing that somebody says when they recognize you. And I realized that I hated that. I hated it when people said, hey, I saw you on TV. I had friends that would say that. And what I wanted was to have people understand that I was good, or they liked me, something like that. And when you didn't hear that, I started thinking of the people on TV that I didn't like. And I thought, oh, I really don't want to be like this person or that person. I want people to like me. So one of the things that I did was I tried over and over. I met with my boss, and he would always give me feedback as to, like, here's what I think you can do better. We would have regular meetings every Friday. And at first, I hated those. Most people don't like being told that they're not good. Most people take criticism very poorly. But you have to be good at taking criticism in order to improve. If you don't receive criticism well, if you can't acknowledge that you can be better, you never will improve. People say the key to fixing a problem is to admit that you have one. So if you can admit that I'm not there yet, there are things I can improve on. If you can admit that, then that's what it's going to take to improve. Another thing I learned through those lessons is you can't learn anything from someone whom you do not respect. If you don't respect this person who's trying to teach you, no matter what they teach you, even if they're right, you will not learn from that person because you don't want to. You don't think that what they're saying is right, even if it is right. So my boss for the first couple of years, this is when I was working in radio. So when I was in radio at CKWX in Vancouver, I worked there for 4 years, and my boss, Gary, would meet with me every Friday, and he would look at my scripts, he would listen to my tape, and he'd say, you know, Jason, you're just talking too fast. You have to learn to pause more. As I told you, that's what you're supposed to do, but back then, I didn't get it. Why did I not get it? Because I didn't respect my boss. When my boss would tell me, here's what you need to do to sound better, what I was thinking in my head was, I sound better than you. And I honestly believed it at the time. I thought, I don't think you sound very good. I don't want to sound like you. I want to sound like me. I think I'm better than you. So no matter what he tried to teach me, I didn't want to hear it. But one thing happened one day. I was anchoring, and my boss, we have anchors and reporters. Sometimes I would be a reporter and I would go to a game. Sometimes I would be anchoring I anchored on the weekends, and my boss or other people would go to a game. And one day, my boss was reporting at a soccer game. And a normal report, when I'm reporting at a soccer game, I might say something like, Dominic Mobilio scored with 5 minutes left to lift the Vancouver 86ers to a 2-1 victory over the Seattle Sounders. Vancouver moves into second place in the Pacific Division with their third straight win. Jason Lee, CKWX Sports. That'd be like something that I might write, or something I might have written back then, because that's what I thought sports reporting was. Everything I told you there's nothing wrong with that. If you were to be on TV or radio and do a report like that, there's nothing wrong with that. If you watch Arirang TV, listen to TBS radio, even Korean news, 90%, 95% of reports probably follow a format like that. But when I was anchoring this one day, and my boss was at the soccer game, and he worded it very different. And this one day, it caught my ear. Something was different. And I can't remember exactly what it was, but let's just say, as an example, you would say, Dominic Mobilio jumped through the air, making contact with the ball that went into the top left corner with 5 minutes left. That sent the 12,000 in attendance roaring to their feet as Vancouver went on to a 3-2 victory over Seattle for their third straight win. The facts are pretty much the same, but when you hear that, it's very different. Very different. I can imagine what was going on. I can imagine the crowd, 12,000 people roaring to their feet. And I realized that was different. I want to learn that. I want to be a better sportscaster, and what I learned that day was becoming a better broadcaster means becoming a better writer. And I remember when I first went to broadcasting school, and I went to Columbia Academy in Vancouver, and I had a friend of mine that went to BCIT, and they were sort of like a rival broadcasting school to us. And I would joke to him, I was like, well, you know, when I become a sportscaster, you can be my writer. And he said, yeah, right. When I become a sportscaster, you can be my writer. And we would joke about that. And that was my imagination at the time is that everyone on TV has a writer, and you're just on TV to read a script and to talk about what somebody else is giving you. They're giving you the information, and you're just reading the script for people to see. And a lot of TV people, especially in Korea, that's exactly what they do. There's a lot of talking heads, as we call it in Korea. They're just there to read a script. But let me tell you that once again, getting hired is not good enough. Just being a talking head is not good enough. Because what separates you, that's your face that's on TV. It's your voice that's on the radio. And what will separate you from every other broadcaster is how you say things, what you say. Do you want to just say, Vancouver scored with 5 minutes left? Or do you want to say 12,000 people roared to their feet? The audience is going to remember the latter. And if you can write your script that way so that you can speak that way on air, that's who the audience understands, wrote, and said those things. When I worked at Arirang TV, every word that has ever come out of my mouth, it was always from a script that I wrote. 90% of the people on Arirang TV don't write their own scripts. And I'll be arrogant enough to say it. I've had tons of people tell me, wow, you're really good. And I know that the other people that don't write their scripts, they don't get those same type of compliments. And the reason is because the reason I'm good isn't because I can read a script better than somebody else. The reason I believe I'm good is because I have a better script to read than everybody else. And when you write your own script, you don't make mistakes. If you're reading scripts that other people have given to you at the last moment to go on air, everyone writes differently. I might say, I work hard to improve. I write it that way in my script. Somebody else might write it, to improve, I worked hard. Some people have a tendency to speak a certain way, and I expect the next word to go up like this, but instead it was written to go down this way. And when you're live on air, you can make a mistake because of that. When you write your own script and you know that you wrote it the way that you speak, then mistakes become minimized. And if the person running the teleprompter goes too fast or too slow, and all of a sudden your script isn't the way that it's supposed to, you don't have to panic because you wrote your script. You know what it says. It might not be word for word, but the audience doesn't know that either. You can ad-lib your way through it. But you can only do that if you write your own script. So that was one of the great lessons that I learned on how to improve. And when you become a good writer, a better writer, it helps in what I believe to be the most important thing as a broadcaster. If you're an on-air presenter, radio or television, nothing is more important than confidence. Confidence is what makes you a good broadcaster. Without confidence, you just shouldn't be on air. It's as simple as that. If I'm talking to you right now and, I want to tell you that confidence is something kind of important that I think you should try to have confidence when you speak and stuff, right? Then how does that make you feel? I need to convince you that what I'm saying is right. This is what confidence is important. And I want you to understand that confidence is very important. If I can't say that to you confidently, with confidence, this is what is important, why should you believe me? If I don't believe that confidence is important. If I can't say that with confidence, why should you believe me? If I tell you to buy a Hyundai Sonata, you should buy a Hyundai Sonata because I think it's kind of a good car. It's kind of good on gas. It's not very expensive. And, like the design looks kind of nice, don't you think? Compared to if I'm selling you that Sonata and say, the Sonata is the car that everybody is buying now. It's priced right. Look at the design. Isn't that just absolutely stunning? And the mileage that you get on it, best in its class. I have one too. My wife drives one. If I'm saying it to you like that, with confidence, I believe in this car, then you as an audience, as a customer, are more likely to believe what I'm saying and buy that car. If I'm speaking to you without confidence, how or why would you ever believe anything that I'm going to say? And when I say, I kind of drew a parallel right now to selling a car to being on air. Understand that being on air, this is very important. Being on air, you're a salesman, okay? When you're on air, on TV or on radio, you are a salesman. If you want to be on TV, you want to be on radio, but you don't ever want to do sales. You hate sales. You hate selling things. You don't ever want to be a salesman in your life. Broadcasting is not the job for you. Because every day when you are on air, you are a salesperson. Who are the customers? The audience, okay? The audience is your customer. What is the currency? What do you want from your audience? Do you want their money? No. The currency is time. You want the audience's time. You want the audience to watch you, and you want the audience to return to watch you the next time. Okay? They're buying you. They're watching you. You're giving yourself, your story, your broadcast to the audience. That's what you're giving them. They're paying with time, not with money. And your audience is your customer. Understand that. So if you learn how to sell, if you take sales classes, understanding the concepts that they teach you in sales classes, in sales seminars, those will help you to become a better broadcaster because they will teach you how to sell with more confidence, to understand what does the audience want, what does the customer want, what are you going to give them. You can parallel the things. So understand, if you want to get into broadcasting, prepare yourself to understand that you will have to sell. Understand that, okay? Some of the other things that I did to improve, you might not believe this, but when I was working at the radio station in Vancouver, so I was working at CKWX in 1996, I was 22 years old. I was the youngest sportscaster in Vancouver at 22. And my boss, the news director, came to me one day and he said, "Jason, I know that you're only 22 years old, but when you're on radio, you sound like you're 18. And the audience, people who are maybe in their 30s, maybe in their 40s, some of them maybe in their 60s, they don't want to hear about what's going on in the world of sports from an 18-year-old kid." You can imagine an 18-year-old kid trying to tell you what happened today in the news. If you see a little kid on TV, it doesn't seem believable. Their credibility is going to be questioned. unless they're really, really good, okay, which they might be. So he said, you know, I want you to try to sound like you're older, because people aren't going to want to hear from an 18-year-old kid. You need to try to sound like you're 30 or 35. Okay, well, how do I do that? So I talked to some of my colleagues and mentors, and I asked them, how am I supposed to sound older? So back then I probably talked more like this, because I was talking more out of my mouth and my throat. But eventually, I was told that you should try taking singing lessons, because learning how to sing teaches you to breathe more out of your stomach and out of your chest. And it also saves your voice more. So if you're using your voice a lot, then your voice might get hoarse after a while. But if you learn to project your voice through your chest and your stomach, then your voice will last longer as well. It's better for your voice. Your voice is going to sound better, and yeah, it's going to sound more credible as well. So for most people, you always want to try to speak at the lowest point of your register that's comfortable. The higher you talk, then the weirder it sounds, especially through a microphone. So you always want to talk more down here, because through a microphone it sounds more round and rich and deep. So one of the things that I did was I took singing lessons. And I went from being someone where the boss would say, you know, your voice isn't good enough to be on radio. And I took 6 months of singing lessons, and eventually when I got hired at the TV station, the people at the TV station would say, wow, it's really true what they say, that people that started in radio and then do TV, man, their voice is so much better. I was like, oh, okay, my voice used to suck, but I put some work into it. And now I also do a lot of voice acting work. So in Korea, not only am I a broadcaster, but I also do a lot of recordings. If you're in your 30s, 20s and 30s right now, when you took the high school English exam, you probably heard my voice on the 듣기 평가, okay? On the EBS recordings, I did a lot of those. I've done a lot of games and animations. If you know the Tayo the little bus on the English recording, my name is Rogi on the English side. So I do a lot of voice work in cartoons and stuff like that as well. But a lot of that was because I took those singing lessons to help expand my range of what I can do with my voice, so I can go deeper or I can go higher, and I know how to do that. So little things that you can do to help yourself to be more productive in the broadcast field. Let me tell you about the day that, finally, the day that I became great. Okay? Like I said, I didn't want to just be on TV. I didn't want to just get hired. I wanted to be good. I wanted to be liked. But no one's going to like you until you like yourself. And I hated myself, even when I was on TV. So the first 6 months, I never told anyone other than my close friends and family that I was on TV. Everyone knew that I was on radio, but I didn't announce it to anybody. Back then, there was no social media, so there was no Twitter or Instagram or Facebook. So people didn't know that I was on TV unless you watched my channel. So when I watched myself, and very, very important, if you ever want to become a great broadcaster, the most important thing is to always monitor yourself. Whenever you do a broadcast, go back, either right away or the day after or within a week, but try to watch and listen to as much of the work you do as possible. I've come in here into PEAT a few times, and I've seen people practicing reading scripts. I've seen several people do that here. And I've wanted to say this a few times, but I never got to, so let me say it now, is when you practice reading, always record yourself. Always record. Just use your phone. If you don't have a good mic, use your phone, but always record yourself. Because when you read your script, you don't know how you sound. It's different. You sound different, and you're not going to remember, how it sounded. How did this part sound when I read it? You might think that it sounded good, but maybe it sounds really bad. You might think that oh man, that part probably sounded horrible, but maybe it was okay. But you don't know unless you monitor yourself. You have to record yourself so that you can go back and listen to it, because you're always going to be your worst critic, okay? I can listen to it and pick out things and give you advice on how to improve this problem. But at the same time, you always have to monitor yourself as well, because you're always going to be your worst critic. So if you're ever going to practice recording, always record yourself. Everyone has a phone that you can record yourself with. Always record yourself. So let me tell you about the day that I finally became great. I always watch myself, and I never once, for the first 6 months on TV, watched myself thinking that, wow, that was a good broadcast. I always thought, that's just like all those other guys that I don't like. And what I realized is, why is that? Why do I not like them? And why do I not even like myself? I'm doing the same things that they're doing. So what are they not doing? Or what are they doing? And what I realized, like I said, there's some people that they're just boring. They just talk like this. And today in sports, the Vancouver Canucks went on to a 6-5 win over the Calgary Flames. And that's how they would speak. And I realized that that's not who I wanted to be. I wanted to stand out. I wanted to be exciting. I wanted to be entertaining. And when you're broadcasting, you're always trying to do one of two things. You're always trying to be either informative or entertaining. You could do both at the same time, but make sure you're at least one or the other. Otherwise, you're just wasting time. So I wanted to be entertaining. And one day, I finally said, enough is enough. I can't go on like this anymore. I don't like myself. I don't want to hate myself anymore. I want to be proud of myself. So one day, I finally decided I'm not going to hold back. I'm going to go for it. I'm not going to try to be safe. I'm not going to try to not make a mistake. I'm going to try to be great. In sports context, we talk about people that try to not lose. I don't want to not lose. I want to win. I want to be aggressive. I want to go for it. And this one day, that's what I decided. So instead of speaking, even to the degree of how I'm speaking right now, this isn't how I spoke that day. It was more like, Pavel Bure goes down, he scores with that goal upstairs. And that's what put the Canucks up 5-4. Finally, their first place in the league. I became much more animated. I wasn't afraid of taking a chance. And that was the first time that I decided I'm going to try to be different. And after that sportscast, when I finished, the audio guy came up to me and said, Jason, what was into you today? I said, oh, Lauren, I'm really sorry. I should have told you. I wanted to try something different. I want to really, try to be better. He said, no, do what you're doing. That is it. That is who you should try to be every day from now on going forward. And I said, really? You think so? I felt better. That felt better to me. He's like, yeah, it was way better. It was one day from the day before, it was black and white. And I never went back to the way I was before. Once you did it once, then you're a new person, and you're a new person for the rest of your career. It's it. I can bury that old person now. He's dead. Now, I'm great. I can be proud of myself. I can tell people that I'm on TV now. I can be proud of what I'm doing. And now I'm getting recognized by people. And they're like, hey, I saw you on TV. You're really good. Sounds much different. So after working on TV in Vancouver, I decided that I wanted to come to Korea. The World Cup was going to be here in 2002. So I came here in 2000 because I wanted to be a part of that experience. I knew that Arirang TV was here, and I had spoken to people there before. And I told them, you know, I'm a TV sportscaster in Vancouver. This is the experience that I have, and I'm interested in working there. And I remember they were actually very uninterested when they answered the phone. I was actually very shocked and disappointed. But I thought, well, you know, let's give it a try anyways. So I came out here in 2000, and I went into Arirang TV, and I auditioned there for their news. And when you audition there, you do two things. You go in and you do a camera test. They'll have a script for you, and you read off a teleprompter, and you do a video test. And then you write a translation test. They'll give you a script in Korean, and you have to translate that into English. So after my camera test, they said, wow, that's the best camera test that we've ever had of anyone here. And I mean, honestly, for me, I was like, well, you probably haven't had someone that's done national TV before in North America coming here. So I was like, okay, fine. And then they said, that was also probably the worst translation that we've ever seen of anything. So my Korean wasn't very good back then, to say the least. And when I translated the script, they said, okay, we can't have you in our news team because you know, you can't translate, and everyone has to be able to translate their own scripts. So they said, well, what we will do is we're going to introduce you to the production team. And from there, they showed them my tape that I brought from the work that I'd done in Canada. And as the people on the production side were looking at that, they're like, oh, wow, okay, this is just different from anything that we've seen before. So what they did was they actually created a show so that they could use me. So they made a soccer show, they made a Shiram show, they made several different sports shows to get me on TV to work for them. And what I learned is because of the experience that I had working in Canada, I entered broadcasting in Korea at a different floor. Okay, most people that work in broadcasting in Korea, well, I speak English. Can I be on TV? Can I be on radio? And that's how most people are. They don't have any experience. They haven't received any sort of education. They don't really know what they're doing. Okay? Whereas I've gone to a broadcasting school. I've worked with the best announcers in Vancouver. I've had 7 years of experience. I've interviewed Michael Jordan and Ken Griffey Jr. and Major League stars. That's the level of experience. And I've been hired. I would say the most impressive thing that I actually did in Canada was just getting hired. It's not that I worked there or I've done these things. I got hired instead of maybe 10,000, 100,000 people. A lot of people want those jobs, but they hired me because I had developed my skills and gained all the experience that I did in Dawson Creek and in radio and all the little things that I did to amass all those experience in all the different ways. And they could see how hungry I was and what a good job I would do, which is why I got hired. So because I was able to enter Korea at a different floor, I got a lot of different work. I literally went from being the small fish in the big ocean of Vancouver, where I was like the bottom of the ladder, and I came to Korea and everybody was giving me work. I'd never asked. When I went to Arirang TV, I asked for a job, but after I was on Arirang TV, I'd have interviews from the Joseon Ilbo. I'd had EBS was calling me. I had event companies calling Arirang TV saying, who's that guy on TV? He's really good. We want to hire him. And Arirang TV would get a lot of phone calls of people wanting to use me. But it's because I was able to enter at a different floor of the industry. So again, just getting hired is not good enough. Because if you enter at the bottom floor, that's where you are and you have to build your way up. But if you gain enough experience and education before you begin, then you can enter at a different level and receive better work, essentially. And for me, I showed you the video earlier, the two different videos, the one when I was in Vancouver and the one where I was in Korea at Arirang. And the biggest difference that I would say is when I was in Vancouver, like I said, I was the small fish in the big ocean, and I always thought everyone in Vancouver was better than me, except for the people that I didn't like. But otherwise, I thought that I was kind of in the middle of the people in Vancouver. Whereas when I came to Korea, I was able to say, I think I'm the best person in Korea. And I should be, based on the experience that I had. But because I believe that, what happens? Because I believe that, I have confidence. And because I have that confidence, because I believe that I'm that good, that's what makes me better. Because I believe that. I believe I'm better than everyone else. When I'm on camera, if I'm on TV, I believe I'm good. Because I believe I'm good, that's why I am good. Confidence is the most important tool. Okay? You have to believe in yourself, but you have to have a reason to believe in yourself. Give yourself a reason to believe in yourself. Some of the fun things about being on TV in Korea is also you get much more respect. So as someone that speaks English in Korea, most of the people that I meet, I have very few Korean friends in Korea. I have maybe one or two friends that are Korean that really can't speak much English. Everyone else that I have as friends in Korea all speak English. And it's interesting because most of the people that you know in Korea that speak English are probably English teachers. But at the same time, there's a lot of people that are gyopos in the entertainment industry as well. So it's kind of different when you meet someone in the entertainment industry as well, and they know that you're on TV or you're a broadcaster compared to if you're just an English teacher. I was telling this to my wife, and she actually found this really interesting because she was saying people in Korea look up to English teachers and they think, oh, you're an English teacher, that must be so great. But if you're a native English speaker in Korea, it's almost like being an English teacher is like, oh, you're an English teacher. It's kind of seen as like, oh, that's what everyone is. That's the grinders. Whereas if you're a broadcaster or like a singer or an actor or something like that, then it's different. Or if you're in investment banking or something else other than being an English teacher, it's kind of like seen as the bottom level of English speakers in Korea. So one of the fun things as a broadcaster is when you meet other celebrities and stuff. I had a couple of friends that were singers. There's a friend of mine, I don't know if you've ever heard of the group Too Shy. They were big in the early 2000s, but one of the members is a duo, and we became good friends. So I ended up meeting a lot of his friends, and do you know Brian from Fly to the Sky is a gyopo. So, you know, through them, like you end up meeting a lot of other people, Park Jung-hyun or Kim Jo-han. There's a lot of other people like that in the English side of the entertainment industry. So I remember I was at Brian Jew's birthday party, and we're at a bar, and they have like a VIP section in this bar. It's like a lounge. And at the time, my wife now, at the time I was dating her as my girlfriend. We met maybe 1 month before. So we're dating for maybe 1 month, and I'm trying to impress her. So I'm like, hey, Brian Jew is having a birthday party. Do you want to go? She's like, oh, Brian Jew? Okay, yeah, let's go. So we went to Brian Jew's birthday party, and we had this VIP room, and this person wasn't originally invited, but there was this person that just happened to be in this VIP room separately. So we're there, and my girlfriend at the time, she said, oh, hey, that's Daniel Henney. And I was like, I kind of look over, I was like, oh yeah, it is Daniel Henney. So she's like, do you know him? No, I don't know him. It's like, well, can you ask him if we can get a picture together? Like, he only speaks English, right? Okay. Oh. So I walk up to Daniel Henney, and I said, excuse me, you're Daniel Henney, right? And he's like, yeah. Hey, you're Jason Lee. I see you on Arirang TV. You're really good. My girlfriend was there at the time, and she's like, oh. It's like, wow, there you go. And now we're married. So there's a different respect level as well in broadcasting. If you can achieve a higher level, you can hang out with people as well. And you're perceived differently. There is this thing where when you hang out with someone that's maybe an English teacher, like there's certain celebrities that will kind of look down on stuff like that. But when you're in the broadcast area, you're almost seen as an equal. Maybe not quite, but you know, you can kind of hang at those parties and still not feel out of place. One of the other things that you'll find is as you get better at work, like I mentioned, you're always going to continue to get more work because you get more exposure. So the more you're on TV, the more you're on radio, the more people like you, you never know who's listening or who's watching. And all it takes is one moment that somebody is watching that's a difference maker, and they might hire you to be an MC for an event. I was on Arirang TV from 2000 to 2013. For 13 years, I was on maybe maybe 10 or 12 different shows. So every Gepyeon, every 6 months or so, they would change. And maybe the show I was on gets canceled, and then they'll create a new show, and then they'll ask me to be the host on this show. So I'm constantly jumping around from show to show. But for 13 years, I always had some sort of a show at Arirang. And because of that, during those 13 years, I probably emceed at least 20 or 30 events. I did like the FIFA World Cup conference in Gwanghwamun. I've gone to Monaco for Hyundai Motors. I've gone to Banff in Canada for Hyundai Motors. I've gone to Busan for LG. I went down to the F1 event down in Yangnam way back then. There's a lot of events here and there, and those pay really well. When I emceed the event in Monaco for Hyundai, they paid me 2,000,000 won, okay, 20 million won, and they flew me out there first class, and I was sleeping in a hotel that was $700 a night. So there are really good benefits if you do a good job and people like you. So you never know. You know, I never went to them and say, hey, I want to do this. They called Arirang TV to contact me. They said, hey, we really like this person. We want to use them. Can we get their phone number? And that's how it happens. Now, since 2013 until now, it's 10 years. in the last 10 years that my face was not on Arirang TV, I've emceed one event. One. Okay? Like I said, I don't really go out there looking for MC work, but in 10 years of not doing Arirang, I've had one job in MC. Before that, 20 or 30 in 13 years. So when you're on TV, it makes a very big difference. Being visible helps, and it will get you other work in other areas because of that. Everything is related, right? In voice work as well. I remember a long time ago, I did a voice for NBC called me, and I went in to do a voice. There was a show a long time ago, I don't know if you've heard about it, called Brain Survivor. So if you've ever seen the TV show Brain Survivor, at the very beginning, my voice was out there, Brain Survivor. And once again, that was them calling Arirang TV because they wanted to use me specifically. So that happens when you're good enough, not because you got hired. Okay, so working a little bit harder every time, it does bring other work as well. Understand how broadcasting works. Okay, how do people get paid? Do you understand how people get paid in broadcasting? Where does the money come from? Does anyone know? Anyone? Sponsors? Sponsors of what? Sponsors of the show. And how do they sponsor the show? Or what do they get? Advertisement. Exactly. Commercials and advertising. Okay? So when you watch Brain Survivor, oh gosh, I can't remember his name. But anyways, the host of the show, he probably, I don't know for sure, but I'm guessing for each show he probably gets maybe 5 or 10 million won, right? It's probably like maybe 500 to 1000 for per show. Where does that money come from? And that's just him. Okay? For every show like that, you see like maybe 10 or 12 celebrities, you see a host, but for everyone you see in front of the camera, there's triple that many people behind the camera. Directors, editors, lights, audio, camera, advertising, sales, right? Administration, construction. There's all sorts of people that are paid a lot of money. To put together one show, it costs a lot of money. So in order to fund everything, you need sponsorship. So the commercials are how people get paid. Those commercials cost a lot of money. And it's not just making the commercial, it's just the airtime. So I don't know if you know what the Super Bowl is, but the Super Bowl is American football. It's the most watched television event each year. So the Super Bowl this past February, it's maybe a 4-hour broadcast. So during the 4-hour broadcast, if I'm Coca-Cola and I want to buy 30 seconds of airtime to just, it's not for making my commercial and paying Michael Jordan and all the other people to be in the commercial, to produce the commercial, it's only the 30-second time. In order to buy that 30 seconds, it's $5 million. $5 million for 30 seconds, and it just went by like that. That's a lot of money to pay for 30 seconds. But that's how many people are watching. It's the most viewed show. There might be 200 million people watching. So if 200 million people are watching this Coca-Cola commercial, and they're like, wow, I want to go and drink a Coca-Cola. Most times people don't even know it, but because of brand recognition, because you see that commercial, you see the logo, the branding, the trademark over and over and over and over again, companies pay tens of billions of dollars a year for advertising. Why? Is it to throw their money away? No, it's because it works. Advertising works. Nike, Coca-Cola, Hyundai, The companies that spend the most money in the world in advertising make the most money. Because you could have the best product in the world, but what does it matter if nobody knows about it? Nobody knows what it is. If I have a pill, and if you swallow this pill, you'll live forever. Let's say I have that, but nobody knows about it. What good does that do? If you have a great product, you need to tell people about it, and then the product will sell itself. But people need to know about it. So advertising works, and they will spend millions, billions of dollars for advertising, and that's how people in broadcasting get paid. Okay. The reason I want you to understand where the money comes from, because that will help you to understand why you're doing this, what you're doing it for, who am I trying to impress, what is this all about? You have to understand that sometimes when you're broadcasting, even in news, you hate to admit it, but sometimes a news story will have a conflict of interest with your sponsor. Okay? If your sponsor for your news is Coca-Cola, and the first story that you're talking about in news was how 2 kids got poisoned after drinking a bottle of Coke, Coca-Cola is not going to like that, right? They might not be able to say don't do it because that would be negligent, but they're going to want it in a soft way, right? They don't want it to be hard. They don't want it to incriminate them directly. So there's things that you need to understand. Where does the money come from? Because you have to understand, how do I get paid? Why do people react a certain way when you broadcast things a certain way? Now, that's how normal broadcasting money comes from, normally. In Korea, English broadcasting is different. In my opinion, it is what it is. This is what, I'll say it's my opinion, but this is the reality. Not enough people watch English TV to be able to get funding from commercials. It costs too much for the number of people that are going to watch English TV. So in actuality, all English content in Korea, Arirang TV, Arirang Radio, EBS Radio, EBS TV, TBS Radio, TBS TV, TBS EFM, KBS World, everything is government funded. It's all government funded. Now, what does that mean? First off, it sort of means there's no consequence. Okay? In North America, here's how I was trained. What I was trained to believe is that if people aren't watching your show, if people aren't listening to your radio station, you don't get paid. It's as simple as that. Maybe you get fired. If you have a radio station, and my show on this radio station has 10,000 listeners, okay? I have 10,000 listeners for my radio show on this station. But I have another station here. This show has 100,000 listeners. 100,000 listeners, 10,000 listeners. If I'm Coca-Cola and I want to advertise on this station and this station, if this station that has 10,000 listeners is charging me $1,000 for 30 seconds of commercial time, $1,000. This station has 100,000 listeners. How much can they charge for 30 seconds? I thought Koreans were good at math. 10,000, right? 10 times. You have 10 times more audience, you can charge 10 times more. It's pretty much an exact science. If 10,000 listeners, $1,000, 100,000 listeners becomes $10,000. It's math, okay? Sometimes there's a few things you can play with in terms of target audience. If it's more male's audience or female audience, it'll change a little bit. But for the most part, it's just rationale. If I'm Coca-Cola, I want to advertise over here for the 100,000 station. Unless you're going to give me a discount that's better than 10% less, right? So the bigger your audience is, the more you can charge for commercials, the more you make. And if you're the host of the #1 show in your city, you'll never be fired. Never. You can do anything you want. As long as you're making your show great, you're making people like you, it doesn't matter. Your popularity will sell commercials and your station can't fire you. Now in Korea, in English broadcasting, it's government funded. So if there's 5,000 people watching, if there's 20 people watching, if there's nobody watching, it basically doesn't matter because the money is still coming in from the government. They're still funding. It's not because they want to make money. The government's losing money on Arirang TV. They're losing money on KBS World. Seoul government is losing money on TBS EFM. But they're doing it as a service. It's your tax money that's going into those stations. It's very different. So even if you have the #1 station there, #1 show, it doesn't matter. Because it matters a little bit, but if they don't like you, well, the money's still coming from the government. Why do I need you? Okay? So the mentality is a little bit different there. So you have to be both good in Korea, because people still like working with people who are good, right? I'm evidence of that. But you also can't be a jerk. If you're a jerk and people don't like you, then they can fire you. But in North America, they can't fire you. Because if you're too popular, you're the one that's bringing in the money. So it does matter. One thing I want to say, the great thing about improving, okay, I said getting hired is not good enough. So let's say you get hired and like I said, I had that day. I had a very specific day. I remember that day. I remember that broadcast. That was the day that I became great. And like I said, I never ever went back. The great thing about when you level up, when you do something that you weren't able to do before, but now you've done it. The best thing about that is once you've done it, you can always do it, and you always will do it. But when you've never done it, that's the hardest part because you want to be able to do this thing, and it's frustrating because I wanted to be better. But I didn't know how to do it, and I was scared. But once I was able to overcome my fear and get over that, now from day 2 until right now, I've never lost that. It's been there every time. So understand that it's not this constant battle of leveling up everything, but if you do perfect one thing that you can be proud of, that's forever. So be happy or proud or peace of mind knowing that it will pay off. And it's not something that you're going to have to keep doing over and over and over again. What happens when you do just get hired? If you get in at the bottom level and you just get hired and you're satisfied with that, I just want to be on TV. I just want to be on radio. A lot of things happen. First off, a lot of people come and go. When you start at the bottom, I've been working in broadcasting in Korea for 23 years, and I've been doing this still for 23 years. The number of people that I can tell that have done this for, let's say, 6 months, that have done at least a little bit of reporting for a radio show in Korea for 6 months at least, there's over 1,000 people. Probably more than 2,000 people. Maybe closer to 5,000 people over the last 23 years. A lot of people have done it once, and yeah, you just weren't that good in actuality. So, you know, we're going to move on. And I know a lot of people. I have friends that are among that group that got hired, were given a chance, but in the end, they just weren't good enough to keep it. And a lot of people do come and go if you're not always trying to improve. The other thing that happens is you might be stuck on your job that you're not as happy with. Okay? When I went to Dawson Creek, and if I stayed there just doing my sports reports at 7 a.m., 8 a.m., and 12 p.m., and nothing else, and I never did play-by-play, I never did the TV, I never created my own sports talk show, I never did those things, then maybe I would still just be there doing that same 3 sports reports at 7 a.m., 8 a.m., and 12 o'clock, because that's all I'd ever done, and that's all anyone's ever going to give me, because that's what my ceiling was. That's all I ever wanted. But if you have greater ambitions to want more and try for more, then you should be able to get more. And if you just get hired, then you might be stuck as an employee, meaning that when you're just a beginner, you don't have as much influence, okay? When I've been here, even from the first 6 months that I worked at Arirang TV, I had people asking me all the time, hey, we need a reporter for this sort of a position. Do you know anyone? And people would ask me because they trust that I'll know who would be good or who wouldn't. So I'll have influence on what to do with a show. When I had my sports show, I would say, you know, I know we're doing this like this, but I think the music should be more fast-paced. Can we have more fast-paced music? Because I want the show to be exciting. So I can have influence on how I want the show to be. If I feel that one of the writers isn't very good, I'm doing my own writing anyways, then eventually I say, you know what, like, I'm just writing all my own scripts anyways. Like, I'm doing all of these people's, I don't really need them. Okay, you know what, let's get rid of them, we'll just pay you extra. Things like that happen as well. They recognize what you're doing. And when you have respect, it's easier to become a freelancer. When you're an employee at a station, let me tell you, broadcasting is not something that you want to do to make money. It can be fun being on TV, but don't get into broadcasting because you want to be rich, because most people aren't. Most people are employees at a station, and they make maybe $2 million a month, maybe if you've been there a little longer, 2.5 or maybe 3. Most people, I think at Arirang, when I went for my audition in 2000, I think the beginner level people were making 1.8 million a month as a starting salary. So you don't make a lot of money in broadcasting. But when I started at Arirang, I didn't go to the news team. They introduced me to the production side. And production was freelance. And when you work in freelance, you get paid by the project, not by the month. So there's much more money and freedom and influence as a freelancer. And you're not going to be a freelancer if you're just not good enough. You have to reach a different level to become a freelancer. So becoming great gives you more influence and it gives you more freedom. And also, if people like you, one of the things that I always say is if you really want to make it as a broadcaster, working at Arirang TV or EBS or TBS, EFM, like that's all great. But some people might disagree with this. But when you've done broadcasting long enough, what you learn to understand is the greatest thing. My own YouTube channel where I have full control. Where I have full control, I would take that over everything that I do where I work for other people and they decide what I do. Okay? Freedom is a great thing. And when you have freedom to control what you want to do, it's much more fun. It's even better. So I always tell people the goal that everyone should have is not just to be a broadcaster. That's how you get in. That's how you learn. But what your end goal actually should be would be to have your own YouTube channel. You could just go straight into doing your own YouTube channel in some ways, but it's good to learn the lessons that you learn from broadcasting because that's where a lot of people gain their audience. You have to be able to create your own audience, and it's easier to gain that from broadcasting and all the lessons that you learn from becoming a good presenter and stuff like that. Okay. So, I'm not really here to teach you how you can become better or anything like that today. That's not really my goal. My goal was kind of to explain to you my story so you can understand this is the path that I've taken, and this you might have a similar path to this one day. You might have a different path. You might not do this at all. I don't know. But I wanted to teach you that this is one way that you're able to do it. And this was the path that I took. So as you probably know, I am going to be teaching classes here at PEAT on how you can become a successful broadcaster yourself. So I don't really have those lessons for today because this is just a lecture, but I will explain a little bit about why I believe that by taking these classes, it will vastly improve your opportunities of becoming a broadcaster in Korea. As I've explained, I think the lessons that I've learned along the way, I've had classes, much like the classes that I'll be teaching. I've gone to classes and I've learned from teachers. I will honestly tell you that of all the lessons that I learned at broadcasting school, maybe 20% of what I do now is based on what I learned in broadcasting school. I would say at least 50% is what I learned working at CKWX Radio and at Sportsnet TV in Canada, just with working with my bosses and working with my peers, because the lessons that I learned from them is really the lessons that I learned. And then I would say the other 30% is from the last 23 years working in Korea, just while working here, being confident in my abilities and just noticing things. Noticing, okay, this is the difference between good and bad, and then being able to explain it to myself and to other people. Because I can watch someone and I can tell you, okay, this is what this person's doing wrong. I can tell you why they're doing it wrong and what they have to do to make it better. Okay, I can see these things because they're visible now. Those aren't things that my teachers taught me. They're not things that my mentors taught me. But I've taught other people, and in order to teach those people, I needed to really understand why. Okay? Why is very important when you're learning something because it helps you to remember. And when you learn the why, those are the things that I think I can explain to people that other people in English broadcasting in Korea can't. Because here's the other thing. People that work at Arirang TV or at EBS, TBS, EFM, almost everyone, I'll say 99, 95, 99%, have never actually gone to broadcasting school. They spoke English and they passed the test. Okay? So they don't really understand what it is that they're trying to do, and they've never actually been taught at Arirang. Arirang TV, they don't teach you how to broadcast because everyone there, they're Korean-speaking people. They can't really teach you how to broadcast in English because they can't do it either. And the people there, they just learn from the people before them, and it just goes through a vicious cycle where no one's actually taught them, where it's something that they've actually learned. There's maybe one or two people that I've worked with over there that actually do know, but they're kind of back and forth between Korea and America. There really aren't people that are capable of teaching the lessons that I plan to teach here at PEAT. So that's about it. I will say in closing that to succeed, I think not just in broadcasting, but in a lot of things in life, there are three keys that you have to have: talent, you have to be hardworking, and you have to have the proper education. Now, of those three things, you have to have two. You have to have two. You can have talent and work hard, and you can be lucky and maybe you succeed without an education. It's possible. I know other people that have done it. But you have to have talent and you have to work hard. You can work hard and have an education. If you're taught properly and you work hard at it and you know what you're doing, because you've got the education, you can succeed. And if you're really talented and you have the education, even if you don't work hard, but because you're that talented, you can still succeed. So I'm offering the education side of it. If you're already talented and you work hard, maybe you don't need it. But if that's not you, then and even if it is, I still highly recommend getting the education side of it. And if that's the case, then hopefully when I ask my question again, do you want to be a broadcaster? You'll answer yes. Okay, that concludes my lecture. I will take any questions that you might have. Actually, did you guys want to wrap up first and then take questions? Okay, what I'll do here then. Okay, so there's a mic over here. If you have questions, just raise your hand and we'll pass you the microphone and I'll answer any questions that you guys might have. Anyone? Yep.
Yes, sir, thank you for the lecture. It was very helpful. There was a lot of takeaways, as mentioned before, but I just have one question for you. So if somebody wants to take broadcasting as a lifetime profession, but in the case of maybe they're hired at a company, they don't have the physical time to prepare for broadcasting, or maybe they don't like what they're doing, do you recommend them to maybe quit their job and devote themselves into preparing to become a broadcaster?
I would say that if you are able to have the time where you can dedicate, the more time that you can dedicate to learning and practicing, the better your chances are going to be, okay? If you can devote 40 hours a week to practicing broadcasting with direction, with someone correcting you, you'll improve. It's as simple as that. Now, does it mean that you should just quit your job and go for it? I'm a little bit hesitant in saying that because I think that you can improve without as much time as well, right? So it's how much time can you devote? If you can't devote any, right? If it's only 2 hours a week or 4 hours a week and there's no other time that you can devote to that, and there are other issues that you have, maybe your English pronunciation isn't perfect, maybe you're very shy, maybe your writing isn't very good. If you have other issues, then you don't have time to practice all of those, then it might be a little more difficult. But like I said, if you have a lot of talent, some people are very charismatic naturally. I've seen people that are amazingly gifted that I'm jealous of. I'm like, oh my God, I wish I was as talented as you. So if you are very talented and you don't have as much time, then it's possible. But it obviously helps if you have more time. Any other questions?
Is it okay if I ask 2 questions?
Absolutely.
Okay, I was just wondering, as you mentioned about the government is funding the Arirang TV.
Yeah.
Does that mean that politically they're gonna have to assisting for the ruling party whenever they talk about political stuff?
Yes and no.
Oh, okay. So
Okay.
it can be neutral, but
Yes. So I remember when Son Ji-ae was the president at Arirang TV. She was a former CNN correspondent in Korea. And when she was the president there, I was working on a TV show there called Korea Today. It was a morning show where we covered news. And we talked with her. And one of the things that she said is, we all understand that we're government funded. And because we're government funded, does that mean that we have to be pro-current government in everything that they're doing? And she said, no, it doesn't. However, we have to be fair. And there's a certain amount of journalistic integrity on what you want to do, on how each person wants to do it. And there will be, depending on who the boss is, who the news director or the centerjang is at the time, they'll have their opinion as to how fair you should be or how pro-current government that you should be. And they might say certain things. It does happen. But at the same time, there's a lot of times that depending on who the boss is upstairs on how fair that they want you to be. Yeah, there's times when the president of Arirang has had to go to the National Assembly to speak in front of the people there to explain why we did something a certain way. So she was not very happy after that and then had to come back and report to everybody, okay, look, like we can't be doing this. So because the money does come from there to a certain degree, yes, but at the same time, you can't ignore news, right? But you have to be fair, right? You don't want to completely slander people. So, did you have another question?
yes, thank you. And before you came to Korea, you said you've contacted some people in Arirang TV. And how were you able to get the contact of the personnel there? Were you able to network through the people from the Canada? Or?
When I first came, so I came a year and a half before I came to Korea. I came to Korea just on a trip to meet a friend. So when I came out here at that time, that was the first time that while I was here, I saw that there was an English TV channel. So when I saw that, I went to their homepage at the time in 1999, and I contacted people there. I made a long-distance phone call. I emailed some people just to ask what kind of TV station it was and stuff. So I think when I contacted the people at that time, it wasn't necessarily the people that actually had the power to, hire me. And I think that's why the first time I reached out, I was a little bit disappointed with how much interest they had in me, because I thought they would be like, oh yeah, well, we want to use you right away. You work for a national TV station in Canada? Yeah, please, we want to hire you. It wasn't like that. So my expectations were very different from the reality. And I think it's because it was the wrong people that I was in contact with, because it was just through their homepage. Mm-hmm. Any other questions? No? No? Last chance? Going once? Going twice? Okay, we're finished for questions. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much for all your participation.
네, 시간 관계상 질문은 여기까지 받도록 하겠습니다. 질문자 여러분과 답변 주신 제이슨 리님 모두 감사드립니다. 다시 한번 오늘 특강을 위해 수고해 주신 제이스 리님께 큰 박수 부탁드리겠습니다.
Now we've come to an end of today's seminar. Once again, thank you very much for joining us today.
그럼 오늘 일정은 여기서 마무리하도록 하겠습니다. 참석해 주신 모든 분들께 다시 한번 감사의 말씀드립니다.
Have a nice weekend and hope to see you again.
여러분 고맙습니다. 안녕히 가십시오.